All right, our next module is what is Coso? Coso was formed out of the Treadway Commission in 1985. It was organized to sponsor the National Commission on Fraudulent Financial Reporting. The formation was jointly sponsored by 5 organizations listed here, with a focus on codifying internal controls and fraud prevention. Coso is wholly independent of sponsoring organizations and included folks from industry, public accounting, investment firms, and the New York Stock Exchange. A number of framework and papers have been issued as a result of the joint effort. Many papers relate to internal controls, but more recently, some of the articles have been focusing more so on information technology and cybersecurity. The original framework was published in 1992 related to internal control. However, Coso has continued to regularly write supplement papers related to the topics. Typically, these undergo a standard public comment and a revision period, and this is how the recent updates to the internal control framework was handled. A fun fact is that due to the volume of comments, there was a second commentary period before the final version, revised version, was issued in 2013. The revised standards were then effective in 2014. The Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, that's what Coso means, their mission is to provide thought leadership through the development of comprehensive frameworks and guidance on enterprise risk management, internal control, and fraud deterrence designed to improve organizational performance and governance and to reduce the extent of fraud in organizations. Coso's vision is to be recognized as a thought leader in the global marketplace on the development of guidance in the areas of risk and control, which enable good organizational governance and reduction of fraud. The Coso frameworks are all depicted as a cube. However, the important areas to focus on are the objectives and the internal control components. The third dimension consists of various levels at the organization. The internal control framework consists of 3 objectives, which are to 1, ensure the organization is operating efficiently and effectively, including procedures to reach financial goals and safeguard assets. 2, to ensure that reporting internally and externally is reliable, accurate, timely, and transparent. And 3, the organization has processes in place to ensure compliance with laws and their industry's regulations. Next, as I mentioned, the framework defines 5 major components of internal control. So first, the control environment. The control environment of any organization is the foundation of a sound system of internal controls. This includes the tone at the top, the organization's tone on integrity and ethics, the structure of the entity, its processes, and the organization's risk philosophy. Risk management. This is a systemic approach that is agreed upon to define the way to identify risk in an organization and ultimately determine the organization's approach to developing control actions for those risks. The risk assessment is dynamic and constantly changing. Overall, risk assessment is that where the organization has a method to assessing risk and developing an approach to address those risks. Control activities. The actions that have been developed by the organization, such as standard procedures to prevent or detect errors and prevent the identified risks coming to fruition. The processes in control activities are designed to ensure that the objectives can and are met. These are the process level controls that are often very heavily documented. Information and communication. This is the means by which information is passed throughout the organization, including senior management's tone on internal controls. The primary enabler to ensure that the organization understands what is necessary to achieve the organization objectives. This includes how the organization communicates results and information throughout. This is very closely tied to the content of the control environment and speaks to the transparency and timeliness aspects of the reporting objective. And then monitoring. These are the ongoing approaches to monitor controls to determine if they are effective. This includes such activities as internal audits and monitoring of grant activities. So this is what the Coso Cube looks like. As I mentioned, it combines the Coso objectives and the 5 components. And the remaining side represents the level within the organization itself, which could be entity-wide, the division, an operating unit, or function, and in this case would relate to the TRIO grant program itself. Coso has developed other cubes, but we'll be focusing on the internal controls cube. And this concludes the Coso Module 2.